Okay.
Okay, you got it.
All right. Sorry about that, folks. We had a little technical difficulty, but we are back on here for the Best Boys Center Ice Podcast 2025 Stanley Cup Playoff Wrap Up Show. And exciting games tonight. We had 4 game 6s, and three of the four series ended tonight. And we're just going to wait. There's Carson. Hi, Car.
Hello.
So we're all set for our wrap up show, and some good games tonight in all around. Especially, I think the Dallas Colorado game and the Edmonton LA game, and we'll get into those because those are the late games. But that first game, and we were all sitting here going, "Wow, the Leafs being the
We were
Leafs, the
waiting.
Leafs being the Leafs, the Leafs being the Leafs," and the Leafs weren't the Leafs tonight as they finally broke through and beat the Ottawa Senators 4-2 to win the series 4 games to 2. Now, this, I saw a stat kind of flash across the screen during the Oilers game. This is only the second playoff round victory for the Leafs since 2004.
Yeah,
Only the
because
second time.
they beat Tampa Bay in round one in 2023, and then got beat right away by Florida, and then now this year they beat Ottawa. In round one, and they're tonight. I'll give them credit. Their big boys were the ones that stepped up. Matthews got a goal. Nylander got a goal. He had two actually, an empty
Yeah,
netter. You know what
yeah,
though? I don't really care what the numbers say on this. Toronto's not beating Florida. They're not going to beat them. I mean,
no,
they struggled mightily with Ottawa, and Florida like brushed Tampa Bay aside like nothing.
yeah,
And Tampa Bay, I don't. The standings show that Toronto's the number one team in the division, but Tampa Bay, I felt like was a better team than Toronto. Standings just don't show how good of a team sometimes that you are.
right.
And the Leafs have always been a good regular season team, and I think Florida's gonna run away with it. I
Yeah,
I
I
I
can't.
don't think people think that Leafs can really match up with Florida really well. It's going to go to 7 games. I don't think it's going to. I think Florida's
No,
going to be able to
no.
have their way with Toronto, and all they have to do, and because the series will start in Toronto, they just have to win 1 game there, and they're
Yeah,
good.
and we know that Toronto still has the stigma
Yeah,
of
they can't get
only
past the
getting
second
by the
round.
first round. Yeah, they can't get back to the second round. You can, you could be a great team. Like they've been a great team the last few years since Austin Matthews has come into the picture. They've been a great regular season team, but they get to the playoffs, and if you don't get to the spot here in the Stanley Cup final as a team like that, like Toronto, then you got to. They're just Leafs being the Leafs. Okay, they beat the Ottawa Senators. Young team haven't been in the playoffs.
Since 17,
Scrambled to
since
get it.
2017.
Scrambled to get into the playoffs. Gave them a run for their money. And yeah, you said finally, Austin Matthews in this series only has 2 goals. That's a guy who scored 64 of them last
Well,
year.
he
And
only has 3 goals in his what would be now his 15 playoff games, last 15
yeah,
playoff games, and
yeah,
he's supposed to be their number one. And I mean, he, good for him to get one tonight for sure. But he, I just don't see the Leafs beating Florida. I mean, not to be
no,
negative, not on purpose. I just don't see it happening. I mean, Florida's just
no.
a really deep team, and I mean they
Florida's
literally beat Tampa like it was nothing, and that's
yeah.
crazy to think about.
Florida is they're proved that they're the Stanley Cup champions. They're the team that's been to the Stanley Cup final the last 2 years. They are for real,
Yeah,
and Toronto's going to have an awful
it's gonna
time
be
getting
it's
two
gonna be
wins
a
in the series.
struggle for them. It's gonna be a struggle for them to get out,
It's going to be a
and they're
struggle
already
for them,
starting
but
they're already starting the "we want Florida" stuff. It's like, okay,
yeah,
yeah, you do,
you
sure
said
you
this
do.
about yeah, you said this about Boston too, and look what happened last year. So okay, the Leafs win. The Leafs win 4-2, win the series 4-2, and as Carson mentioned, they move on to play the Florida Panthers. So the East is all taken care of,
Yeah,
and we'll move on to the games that were out west tonight in Minnesota. Another good game. And a
yeah,
proof that the Minnesota Wild are going to be a team to be reckoned with down the road. The Knights win 3-2, but um, it wasn't an easy 3-2 win for the Knights
Nope.
tonight. And um, and you go back to the game. Was it the last game where they had the goal called back that would
Yeah,
have
game five.
changed
Game
the
five.
series?
Game
Yeah.
5, 1 minute and 20 seconds left. They score that goal, and then they get
Mm-hmm.
Vegas ends up challenging it after it's reviewed originally, and then they get the goal called back. They win in
Yeah.
overtime. So again, this is another series that could look completely different. It could be the other way right now, where Vegas is out and Minnesota's moving on, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not.
Yeah.
It's crazy how quickly that hockey changes.
Yeah.
Literally, this change. Same thing. We'll talk about the Oilers series. Same thing with all these other series. I mean, Ottawa tonight, they would have won. That's a series 5 days ago. They're down 3-0, and it's tied after 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy
Yeah.
to think, but yeah, I mean, unfortunate for Minnesota, and they continue just their struggle of getting out of the first round, which sucks. And I mean, they had a really good team, and they just didn't happen.
No.
This game also points as all signs likely that Fleury's done.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't he played his last game technically in Game 5 when he came in relief, but he's most likely done. The Wild, I
So
think we
what do you think about, since okay, let's kind of pause on the Marc Andre Fleury thing for just a second. You watched him play, and you were when you
yeah.
started watching the game, he was the goaltender that won cups with
Yeah,
Pittsburgh,
yeah.
and due to the expansion draft with
He went to
Vegas,
Vegas, yeah.
he went to Vegas. What do you think about the career as it looks like it's over for Marc Andre Fleury?
I mean, first ballot Hall of Fame, no doubt.
Yep,
I mean, he
no doubt.
he is top. He had this was it second most all time wins by a goalie,
Mm-hmm.
and 3 Stanley Cups. Probably made one of, if not the most iconic save I think
Mm-hmm.
ever. That sliding pad save on Lidstrom in the final in '09. But yeah, I mean, he's got Hall of Famer. That's not a doubt,
Yeah,
and I hope he kind of sticks around the game. Maybe joining an organization as a goalie coach, because I mean he knows what he's
yeah.
doing, obviously. But
Mm-hmm.
very storied career. If this ends up being it, which most likely it is, uh, yeah. I mean he battled a lot of adversity. When he got traded from Vegas to Chicago, basically for nothing, and that came as a surprise that happened. He led that team, and then he got put on a good Minnesota team. And you know what? Good for him. He won his championships. He got to be just have fun and play the game. And I think he set the example for a lot of people that like watching, or even the younger generation that wants to play just to have fun. Because
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he's always one of those guys to always just have fun, play jokes. Like he wants to have a good time,
yeah.
and that's
He's
what makes him who he is. And
the
you ask anybody that watches a game or any of the players that talk about him. I don't think there's anybody that says they don't like him
no
because he's just
that guy
funny.
is going
He's
to be
awesome. He's got a good personality.
that that guy is going to be missed around the NHL. Some of the pranks he pulled, especially on Sid Crosby, when they're even after they stopped playing together, he was still playing pranks on Sid Crosby. Hats off to Marc Andre Fleury. You're right, first ballot Hall of Famer. It would have been nice for him to have kind of moved on and played a little bit more, but 3 cups. He's going to go home with the kids and have a good time. And yeah, goalie coach somewhere, whether it's in Minnesota or whether it's somewhere else in around the league. Maybe he goes back to Pittsburgh
I've
and
heard
gets
they
into
need.
the
I've heard they might
organization.
need one. So you know what? That'd
Yeah,
be great.
yeah.
I'd be all right with that.
And speaking of Pittsburgh, I know we're talking Stanley Cup playoffs,
Yeah,
but the regime and the era in Pittsburgh is over for Mike Sullivan, and it looks like he's going to be in New York
New York.
coaching the
Yeah,
Rangers.
I'm not surprised that he's going to the Rangers. I've heard too Tortorella could be following him as an assistant,
Mm-hmm.
which they've been on the same staff before. But he had a great tenure. I mean, 10 years with the team, and he won twice, 2 Stanley Cups. The only coach in franchise history to
Mm-hmm.
win 2 Stanley Cups, most wins all time by a coach in the
Mm-hmm.
organization. First American-born coach to ever win back-to-back Stanley Cups. He had a lot of
Yeah.
history-making moments, but the last 3 years just show that the team needed a change, and it wasn't a surprise that teams are already trying to scoop him up because he has a really good resume, and he's definitely
Yeah.
going to be a good fit somewhere. It's just the voice
Yeah.
gets old after a little bit, and you need
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of a shakeup, much like the Oilers did with Woodcroft. People would have
Yeah.
thought, okay, like they've got a loaded team, but sometimes you just need that change, and the Penguins need it, and it's good that they're getting it, and it'll just be interesting to see who they get. Uh, I wouldn't mind seeing Talkett step in because now
Yeah,
he's not going to be in Vancouver anymore. But we'll see which route they go. But yeah, very good tenure for him, and the Rangers are going to be lucky to get him if once they officially ink that deal.
right. So back to the game. Golden Knights win 3-2. They move on to the second round. They were the first West team to make it to the
Yeah.
second round. We'll talk about their opponents in just a few
I
minutes.
don't want to talk
Um,
about that team. We already blow their tires up every night after
well,
the
we're gonna keep blowing the tires up because we got 4 tires to blow up tonight. And a game that you were
that
while I was
okay.
watching
I that
I was
was a
watching the Oilers game.
this was a
That this game was
oh,
probably the best one of the
yeah,
best one of the night.
it was the best one of the night, and the
That's
Colorado,
Dallas and
Colorado,
Colorado.
yeah, Colorado won that game 7-4 tonight. But what a game! I mean, just back and forth. Colorado scored the first 2 goals, and then Dallas came back, scored two. Colorado scored again. Dallas ties it. But as I was texting you in the second period of that game, literally for 5 or 6 minutes of that second period, it's literally just back and forth, end to end action where there's every rush. Somebody's hitting the post. There's a 2-on-1. There's a 3-on-2. No whistles, just back and forth. Back. One of the most chaotic sequences I think I've ever watched. Literally just, you know, back and forth. And it's great because some of the calls in this playoff have been not very good as far as the announcers they choose for the American side. But this game happened
Mhm.
to be the TNT networks, and it had Kenny Albert calling the game, which he's a really
Yeah.
good commentator. Oh my God, just back and forth. And then the crowd's going crazy as the rushes keep going because it's so
Mhm.
chaotic. And it's just like, the post, somebody hits the post, somebody, misses just high and wide, whatever. It was a crazy game. And then the goal that ends up winning the game is one of the wackiest goals I think you'll ever see. As Dad has his little smoking cough break here,
No, it
but
was a
yeah,
sneeze.
that I mean, one of the craziest goals you'll ever see. That goes to
Ah,
like two or three different Dallas Stars, and they touch it to each other, and then they're going to clear it out, and it gets cleared right off of their own guy in the front, Blackwell, and it hits him and goes in the net. And that's the winning goal for the Avalanche, and that sucks for the Stars because I mean they were tied at that point and now they're down. But uh, I I didn't see Colorado losing this game. I texted you. I thought they were gonna I thought that they were going to win, and they did. And now they sent it back to Dallas for the only, uh, up to this point, yeah, at least the only
yeah,
game seven of round one so far, unless
yeah.
Winnipeg and St. Louis decide one tomorrow. But yeah, that was a crazy game. But the Avs win 7-4. McCarr finally got off his little schneid and got a goal, empty netter, but it doesn't count. A goal is a goal. Um,
Yep.
but they're again, their best guys step up when they need to. Nishushkin had 2 goals. Even though McKinnon had that fluky one, he got a goal. Landis got an assist in there. McCarr does goal. So they're stepping up, but game seven is going to be very interesting. I really wonder if there's any possibility that Haskin and Robertson play in game seven.
I tell you,
Considering this can be their last game of the
yeah.
season, but I really don't think the Stars have played that bad. They definitely have
Mhm.
played better at home. And
Yeah.
that's the good thing is that they're going back home. We know how that crowd is. They're going to be loud. They're going to be excited.
Mhm.
But this is going to be must see TV. I mean, all of Canada and America, at least that watches the game, are going to be watching this hockey game. And I'm very
Yep.
excited to watch this hockey game because I imagine you are too. That you're going to watch it because
Mhm.
it's going to be a good game.
Yeah.
It really is. It's going to
It's
be
gonna be
great. I
it's gonna
mean,
be a great game.
these are two heavyweight teams that honestly this should be like a conference final matchup,
Mhm.
but it's not. It's just
Yeah.
because of the
It's
divisional, the way that it
right.
works. But I'm really excited for the game. But yeah, Colorado wins 7-4, and then unfortunately we have to all the time we talk about the Oilers, 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 Oilers. Oilers. But
Well, they keep
anyways,
winning. What
the
can I say?
Oilers, the
They
Oilers,
they
as you
keep
see,
winning.
their little blue year logo
This blue steel gear.
move up the ladder as they defeat Los Angeles in the best of seven series. 4-2 is the series final tally, and for the fourth straight year, the Oilers beat the Kings in round one, and send them back home to LA, and they move on to play Vegas in round two. I
Yeah.
This game was crazy. I mean, right off the jump, those 4 quick goals before the first TV timeout of the game.
Yeah, it was
It's
like
like, what kind
within
of game are we
6
gonna
minutes.
have? Are we gonna have a
Yeah.
7-7-6 game or what? But
Yep.
it was a good game, and I'll let you kind of run over your spiel here with it, since you
Well, I
watched
think
it more than me.
this is the fourth time in Stanley Cup playoff history that a team has come back and won 4 games, being down and coming from behind in 4 games, and they did the reverse sweep. They lost the first 2 games badly to the Kings. Well, not I don't know badly, but they just didn't play very
Game
well.
two was bad, but game one they should
Yeah.
have had that.
So then they come back and they win 4 straight, and like I think their most dominant game was Game 5 in LA, which you needed to have. You needed to have that road game where you dominated, and they did. That was the only game that was total dominance by one team. And and what's great about the last few nights, the last few games, is the others, the bottom guys
Yes,
are
are stepping
scoring.
in.
They're starting to step. This is what we've talked about for years: is the bottom guys scoring. And I know, like Adam Henrique gets his
The
first
first
of
goal
the
of the game,
playoffs.
right?
Yeah, the
The
first goal of the
Oilers.
game. Nuge gets one on the power play. Hyman got Nurse got his first. Trent Frederick gets his first as an Oiler, and then Connor Brown gets his third in an empty net. But not only on the scoring sheet, but the bottom 6 in the last 3 to 4
They played
games
well.
really stepped up and forced the play of the Kings. Now, what we had talked about before the game even started and the last couple of nights is if the Oilers don't get to a good start, they're going to have big problems, and they probably won't beat LA. Well, they started out. I think there was a stat that said first in the first 4 games or
Yeah.
something like that, the Oilers only scored, or first 4 or 5 games. The Oilers only scored 7 goals in the first 2 periods. Tonight they score five goals in the first two
Well,
periods.
and I mean it's crazy because the first 2 shots for LA were goals of this
Yeah,
game.
and so yeah, you're thinking you're going, oh, Pick, you let in 2 goals on 3 shots, but he settled down. I think you said it right. He said as soon as he starts feeling the puck, you texted me. As soon as Pickard starts feeling the puck and getting into the play, he'll be
What
Calvin
can I
Pickard.
say? What can I say? I know what I'm talking about. What
Yeah,
can
you
I
know
say?
what you're talking. I keep telling people that Calvin Pickard has came into his own
Yeah,
in
he
this
did.
series.
That did
I
you
don't
that pad save
see.
he made that pad save
Yeah,
he made on Clark at the end of that game.
yeah.
I couldn't believe that. And I mean, I'll give it to LA. They stuck with it and they almost
Mhm.
came back. I mean, or Kopitar scored that late goal and then they got another really good chance at the end in
Mhm.
the last 20, 30 seconds. But yeah, it's back to Disneyland again for LA as they're going back home. And the only reason the series went this far is because of Darcy Kemper. As much as the numbers might say there were a lot of goals the Oilers scored, he kept the Kings in a lot of these games. I mean, they were getting dominated at points, outshot
Mhm.
heavily, and he kept them in it. But yeah, big game for the Oilers, and you wonder now what's the next move for LA because this is the fourth straight year that
Do you, do you
they've been eliminated, and it only seems like that it seems like the only way they're going to ever move or advance is getting by Edmonton. There's no way around it.
oh, okay? So you think it's like they've had Kopitar, Dowdy, all of these guys that have been around, well, around roughly since they
For a
won the
while, I
cup.
mean, they
So
were there when the Kings won the cups.
is it time to make that change for LA? Because it's
No, no,
apparent they
no, no.
can't.
Because I mean, Kopitar still plays really good hockey, and so does I mean Doughty's still effective, but I think maybe you minimize their roles a little bit and try to get other guys taking over, maybe passing the reins a little bit. Kopitar, obviously, as long as he's there, he's going to be their captain, and Doughty's going to be their number 1A, like alternate captain, but diminish their roles a little bit and let the newer guys step up and kind of take the identity of a team. Make Byfield,
Mhm.
Fiala, Kempe take over as the leaders of the LA Kings. And
But
I think,
that. Oh, you go, Car, go.
and you know that those guys are in that room and are mainly Doughty and Kopitar are upset and PO'd because this is the fourth straight time they've been eliminated by the same team. And no matter what makeup changes on the team, the Oilers got new guys over time. The Kings got new guys. We said it before the series started. During the series, this was the best chance for the Kings to win it, and they didn't. They lost. They still lost. And
Mhm.
I felt like they got better. I mean, at the beginning of the series, in my bracket, even I made for the bracket challenge, I had LA winning because I really thought that
Mhm.
they were a better team. I thought they were a deeper team. I thought going in, Kemper was a better goalie out of him and Stuart Skinner. And I mean, he was obviously Stu didn't play, but he it just no matter what for the Kings, it's just not going to work. It just doesn't work. The way that they're approaching these matchups every season in the playoffs, it's not allowing them to make it far, which is crazy. I mean, you would think you learn after 3 seasons, but they didn't, and they let the Oilers do too much. And for the most part, except for really tonight, the Kings, all of the losses for the Kings were determined by minuscule errors that they made and just
Yeah.
bad errors,
Mhm.
bad points of judgment. The Hiller challenge, game 3. Byfield doesn't clear it out in game 4. Game 5, they sit back on their heels at the beginning. Edmonton controls the game from the beginning. That kind of stuff is the reason that the Kings are out,
Mhm.
and they don't have enough of that veteran leadership there to push them through. They have Kopitar and Dowdy who've won cups, but there's
Yeah.
nobody else in the team who is pushing them enough to just step it into gear and just make the smart play.
Yeah. So that you know that the air went out of that dressing room, and they're going, "What do we have to do, to beat
Well, yeah,
this
what are you
team in
gonna?
the
I
playoffs?"
mean, what are you gonna do? Even it's crazy to think like watching the handshake line, Warren Fogle, guy on this team
Mhm.
last year, who was a big part of the team. I felt like, and a really good integral
Mhm.
point, is on the other side of it, and he
Yeah.
goes to
Again.
L.A.
Yeah.
He goes to L.A. thinking that they'll be able to get past Edmonton, and that doesn't happen.
No. So the Oilers win the series 4-2. They will move on and play the Vegas Golden Knights in the second round.
That'll
Vegas,
be
of
an
course,
interesting series.
have the home ice because they were the Pacific Division champions. That's going to be an interesting series. We'll have to kind of think about when we get to the last two brackets that are going to be done about our predictions. But that's going to be a good series. It's always a tough battle. The Oilers, Vegas has been a tough matchup for the Oilers over the
Well,
last couple of years.
and they're just a hard team to play against, and they're great. They're a tough team. I mean, they've got a lot of talent, and up and down the lineup, they're really good. And you know, I think they also sometimes get the benefit of the doubt, sometimes from the referees, which makes it harder uh, to beat them.
Mm-hmm.
I said at the end of tonight's game, no shade to Vegas. I mean, they won fair and square, but the refs put the whistles away at the end of that game tonight
Yeah.
against the Wild. I mean, they called a penalty on the Wild in the last 8 minutes of the game, and then they missed multiple penalties on Vegas the other way,
Yeah.
which that's kind of starting to kind of make me remind me of the NBA, where they
Yeah.
have to have these big market teams make it. They're making more money by Vegas advancing versus versus Minnesota, which I'm not saying that's what the league's doing, but that's just how it appears to a fan as watching some of these outcomes being determined by poor refereeing.
Yeah.
You know, you're right there,
So.
all the play, but
Mm,
it's going to be a tough matchup. I mean, that's going to be all these matchups are going to be really good. Even honestly, I'm looking forward to Carolina Washington because
yeah.
who's gonna step in out of that one, and I really think that whoever steps in between those two, that's going to
Mhm.
be a neat series again with winner of Toronto and Florida, which I think is going to be Florida. Could we see the Panthers back to the final for the third straight
Yeah.
year, much like their
I,
cross-state rival in Tampa Bay? That
mm,
would be the last 6 seasons that the Eastern Conference champion has come from the state of Florida, if that
yeah.
happens, which is crazy.
That's crazy to
Yeah,
think about. But the Panthers. I didn't think they were going to get by
and
Tampa Bay, and they
they
took
made the
care of
right
Tampa
moves. They got Marchand in there, and
Bay.
they don't look
Yeah.
tired. They look like they're ready to win again and try to
So.
repeat. But
Mhm.
the good thing is they're not the good and the bad part. That's the only crappy part with the farther the playoffs go is that the big workload is done. There's not as many games each night anymore because the rounds are going deeper and deeper.
Mhm.
But tomorrow is our first day of the playoffs where there's only one game
Yeah,
on the docket, and that's the
and
Winnipeg
it's
St. Louis game 6 tomorrow.
and it's going to start at 7 o'clock. So we'll actually be on the air on a decent time tomorrow after
Um,
the game is done. Like I don't know what to do. We're going to be on at like 9:30 or something like that. And then
Unless it
so that's
goes to
game
like
six.
quadruple overtime tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And then the game 7 will be Saturday, Colorado
Ooh,
in Dallas.
I'm
And
so
that's a 7
excited.
o'clock Central Time
I'm so
start
excited
too.
for that game.
So here's where we are bracket-wise. The only two left are out west. Winnipeg leads St. Louis 3-2. Dallas and Colorado tied at 3. That's your game 7. Vegas wins tonight. They defeat the Minnesota Wild 4-2, and the Oilers beat the Kings 4-2. They move on, and those two teams will play each other in the second round. The East has already been determined, and Toronto got in tonight. They defeat Ottawa and 4-2. Carolina earlier defeated New Jersey 4-1. Washington defeats Montreal 4-1, and Florida beats Tampa Bay 4-1. So tomorrow night, as Carson mentioned, just one game, Winnipeg and St. Louis at in St. Louis for Game 6. That'll be a 7 o'clock start, and we'll be on the air probably about 9:30, between 9:30 and 10 o'clock tomorrow. Again, thanks to you can get all of the nightly updates on the Refocus Radio Network. You can also hear I Am Refocus Radio with Shemaya Reed and Sweep the League with Rudy Campos Jr. and a lot of other great content. This will be available on Facebook as a recording here in just a little while, and also available on TikTok probably tomorrow. And this show will be available on our Best Boys Center Ice podcast YouTube page tomorrow as well. All right, Wakar, we're going to wrap things up for tonight. And, well, you know what? In the meantime and in between time, everybody have a great hockey night.
Oh boy.
Yeah, boy. Bye.